Restaurant owners today, the governor announces last call in Colorado will be pushed back 1 hour from 10 to 11 p.m. That is still much earlier than the state's usual 2 a.m. last call. The governor had moved it up to help prevent young people from getting and spreading COVID-19.
But today he had an optimistic tone, saying the data shows things are improving and we may see more loosening of restrictions.
My hope is it can be, midnight as soon as possible, and hopefully the data will bear that out.
Alan Janae is continuing to follow how all these changes are impacting our local restaurants. And Alan, they're looking for any bit of relief.
Well, tonight, Tori, this bar behind me, the Vesper Lounge, is ready to stretch that service an hour later, and they could certainly use the revenue. Now, Denver has had an improving food scene over the past 20 years until COVID-19 really ripped it apart. The question is, will it ever be the same? Well, the answer is likely no. It felt good for John Hosack and Ginny Christian to get out from Parker into Denver this night.
Well, this is us catching up.
On a warm evening, people were eating outside at Frank Bonanno's restaurants along 7th.
I think there's 3 phases of how you're looking at this. Is how am I going to get through right now? Then how am I going to really survive through the winter? And then what does it look like on the other side?
He knows many restaurants will not be back.
I think a year from now, your options are going to be limited, but I think what you're going to get is going to be the best of what was left.
COVID's a hell of an alibi.
Juan Padro runs Bardo, the Tap and Burger restaurants, and a half dozen others, and notes that there were bubbles in brew pubs and restaurants.
And I think a lot of it's going to be for the better, for sure. I mean, it's tough to tell somebody that's losing their business that they've been passionate about, that's been done a certain way for so long. There's some positives in this,
He sees opportunity, but fewer pricey places with slim margins.
There's going to be some lease deals out there for people.
I truly expect that all 10 of my restaurants in a year will be open.
Frank Bonanno believes strong operators will come through, but the people working for him and learning how to be efficient, he thinks, are the next generation of owners.
It's failures and challenges that make you great, or make you good, or make you learn.
Remember, small business is the big job creator in this country. And if you think about it, restaurants are really the ultimate in capitalism. It takes innovation, it takes hard work, and it takes a whole lot of time to make things good and make things work out. So if the restaurant industry, Jim, is able to recover, well, maybe that's an example for all of America. In Denver, I'm Alan Janae, covering Colorado First.
Great point, Alan. Thank you, sir.
All right, that was actually a very good point, and he'll join us now. Thank you for your time. This is Juan Padro, culinary creative. How are you, Juan?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Real well. And innovation, hard work, and time, those 3 things were labeled by Alan Janae there from CBS 4. Those are all things that you do on a daily basis, right?
Well, certainly people within my group, they're a lot smarter than I am. So, but yes.
You're always very modest and humble. The news piece, successful Colorado restaurant owners see opportunity amid coronavirus pandemic. This last week's been an interesting week, Juan. We've had and let's face it, we've had folks in the bar business that they want to pull out their hair when the 10 p.m. and now 11 p.m. last call, and they talk to you about it. They say, why are they talking to Juan about it? I'm losing my mind. My business is late night business. Juan doesn't have any late night business, and they're talking to Juan about this late night business. It's a tough thing. Any reaction to that at all? And I'll go directly, the Mark Berzins of the world and the Chris Fuselays who go berserk when they hear that, why are they going to Juan? He doesn't have late night business.
Yeah, I don't blame them. Those are really smart guys and really good guys, and they have to protect their business interests. And I certainly empathize with where they're at. It does in fact affect our business. We, on the weekends, for example, most of the restaurants are, have people in them till midnight. The Tap and Burgers, are sports bars. So, depending on the event, like for example, if there's like a UFC event or something like that, that stuff can go well past midnight. And so it doesn't affect us maybe on a daily basis as much as it might affect Mark in particular. But it certainly has some effect.
When kind of control what you can control, and this is what I've seen your actions to be. I don't know necessarily if it's your motto or you really even openly say that, but I've seen you control what you can control through this outbreak, and with that had innovation came. Do you consider yourself a successful Colorado restaurant owner right now, where nobody really wants to stand out as being successful right now? Are you seeing success, and do you mind having that moniker on you?
I mean, I haven't really thought about that. I think if what you're alluding to is that something to be embarrassed about, probably not. I think anybody that is navigating this and is still open deserves that label because it's a tough time, and I think that it does take a certain level of work ethic and some ingenuity. To be able to bring money in and bring guests in and make them feel comfortable. And these are much different times. You're operating a different business. But first and foremost, your responsibility has to be to the folks that work for you so that they can, make an income and take care of their families. And, that's kind of what we're focused on. And, if that means somebody's going to call us successful because of that, then okay. But, we're certainly not lining our pockets, or our bank account's not going is not getting more full, that's for sure.
Hey, Juan, this is Brian. Good afternoon. Wanted to ask, don't you think that word success is a little bit confusing? Just because you might have to close a restaurant doesn't mean you're not still successful. And so I think that there's some confusion in that for people. Would you agree with that? Or?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. I don't think anybody's saying you don't know what you're doing if you close due to COVID. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But, I don't know how many we'll see what the percentages are. Right now, in Colorado at least, I'm out on the East Coast right now, and I was driving around Philly yesterday, and I'm up in Massachusetts. I'm going to be in Boston in a couple days, and I'll take a look at what's going on there as well. But, Denver is in a much different position than those cities. And in particular, the neighborhoods in Denver, Lodi, and Cherry Creek. I live in Cherry Creek, but I spend most of my time in Lodi, and those two neighborhoods, the restaurants are doing as well as imaginable, much better than I think anybody anticipated, to be honest with you, during this. Downtown, on the other hand, in Denver is, it's a really tough place to be. And I have just such great respect for people like Jen Jasinski and Alex Seidel and Frank Bonanno and all those folks downtown that are operating in that Troy, that are operating in that type of environment, because, downtown's a ghost town, and to be able to continue to operate like that, that's the definition of success, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's hurry up and wait and hang on right now, and especially for a lot of the good ones, right? How do you ask this question? So we're seeing attrition, and some would say it's the quickening of maybe businesses that should have gone away a little while, and it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. That attrition that we're seeing right now would leave new opportunity. I'm not going to put that question on you on are we seeing the water find its own level with restaurants and some going away? I don't think that's a fair question, but I do think it was striking as Robert Thompson was on the show, now Thompson Growth Group, formerly Punch Bowl Social, saying that it's development mode right now, development mode, not asset management mode. Do you agree with that statement?
No, not entirely. I think it's probably both. For him, it's development mode because he's moved up. But I think if he was still with Punch Bowl, I think he'd probably, say it was a balance as well. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's an incredibly prolific entrepreneur, and he's a very intelligent guy, and a guy that many of us, look towards for leadership, and he's done a great job. But, but if you're But if you're, well, I guess I'll use myself as an example. If you've got Highland Tappenberger and Bardo and Señor Bear and AshKara and they're all open, you're protecting your asset. And but that being said, I think it'd be crazy not to be keeping a really close eye on what's happening in the market. And there's two things there, right? It's not about necessarily capitalizing on the fact that somebody else went out of business. And I know that a lot of people kind of view it that way. For me, I think it's an opportunity to have conversations with, commercial real estate developers and say, hey, how do we move forward and how do we position restaurants and commercial real estate? How do we align them and how does this look, going down the road as a win-win for everybody? Is it an amenity where commercial real estate looks at how they finance their buildings and as part of that building out restaurants and having partnerships from that perspective? Do we look at the way leases are structured? Which, that's something that we're doing. I mean, signing a triple net lease right now, unless it's an incredible deal, I think is a really risky proposition. But, I think if you, can come to an agreement with, with a landlord where you can do a gross lease, where you can keep your occupancy costs below 8% and you can ensure that. So do, a percent gross lease, then, I think more real estate owners are open to those conversations right now. And I think that is something that I would recommend that everybody, kind of does. And if you're losing one of your restaurants, or multiple restaurants, it's not, this disease doesn't come and take your brain away, right? It doesn't mean you don't have the intellectual property, the value's in the intellectual property, right? And I know that there's an emotional attachment, especially in food and bev, but, I think that there are going to be opportunities because there's still a ton of building going on in Denver, and there will be some second generation and third generation spaces that are coming available. You always look at your basis when you do something new, and if you can keep your basis low and you can sign a really good deal moving forward, and you've got a concept that you believe in that maybe just didn't work because it was in downtown Denver during COVID, I think that you probably, when the emotions are pulled out of it, have a pretty incredible opportunity ahead of you.
Wow, I just took notes on all of that, and that's fantastic. The triple net right now, to stay away from that, the percent gross lease, 8%. Where do you come with the 8% number?
Well, you want your occupancy. If you're a sit-down restaurant, your occupancy really needs to be below 8%. And so your occupancy costs are basically just what it costs to operate your business. So that's not just your rent and your taxes. It's anything else that is an expense that for your space. So like for a Tappenberger, for example, it's all the way down to like the cost of DirecTV for us, right? So that would be the same with somebody like Mark Berzins or Chris or those guys. But, your trash removal, your electricity, all that stuff. So if you're looking at it from a percent rent perspective, you really need that number to be about 6%, because the other stuff should be about 2%. So, and that'll get you to that point. So if you're at 8% occupancy costs or below, and you know how to operate, you're going to have a healthy business.
And your concerns, Juan, with the triple net, is that just because the occupancy is going to be down and you're going to be sharing a bigger piece of that pie, or?
Well, you don't have any control over taxes, and let's be real, right? Whenever we go into a recession, and we have to spend money to get out of it, that money's got to come from somewhere. I know we're just printing it right now, but the can gets kicked down the road a little bit. So, you tell me what happens when the government needs money. What do?
Yeah, they raise your taxes.
Yeah. They raise your taxes. Okay. So, and I'm not opposed to that, but it shouldn't all fall on the restaurant. You know what I'm saying? So it should be a shared expense. So, and that being said, if the restaurant thrives in a particular area, then, there's also upside for the building owner. I think Garden Grace, Troy, is a great example of that.
Building, correct me if I'm wrong, some of your properties you own, some of them you lease. Am I right? So you're on both sides?
Yes.
Okay. So on from the landlord's perspective, and we're seeing a lot of interesting movement out there right now. One of them that strikes me is the Unique Properties listing the Esquire Theater, and basically probably just to make a move to sell it so I don't have to worry about my tenant at this point. The question that I want to give you is, so through COVID right now, and as people are looking to either landlords to secure their leases or just to continue with their tenants, should they be responsible for any kind of upgrades, whether it be air filtration units, anything to help the current tenant to actually operate a business during COVID? Who should incur those costs?
The government. The government should.
Interesting.
Yeah, there should be programs that the city and the state have, and I know a lot of cities and states say they're broke, but it can be a combination of grants and tax credits and things like that. Or there needs to be some mechanism that comes down from some government organization, because it's the government's responsibility to protect its people.
Got it. That's an interesting perspective.
That is.
So, Juan, as you're moving forward and you're looking a lot of costs, and we're seeing a lot of operators look to whether it's either a COVID charge, a $2 here, or build it in. Are you looking at ways to be able to recoup the cost of gloves, the cost of sanitation, the cost of whatever that you're incurring? How are you absorbing that right now, Juan?
We're paying for it right now, but we're lobbying real hard behind the scenes for tax credits for that.
But nothing you would want to pass along to the customer, the end user? Are you avoiding that?
We've talked about it. It hasn't been a priority for us, but I'm not opposed to that.
Do you keep a ledger for all of the costs that are coming through? I mean, could you give me a dollar amount if I said, here's how much does it cost for you to cover those costs for anything COVID related?
I think so far we spent about $10,000 a store.
It's significant.
Yeah. Juan, do you think that you're a little bit insulated right now because of the location of your
Which one?
Stores? One is not necessarily heavy concentration.
No, like downtown, yeah.
You look at someone like, Frank Bonanno came out in an interview and was saying, listen, I'm fine. I don't feel like I have any problem with all 10 of my concepts. I think that's very bold, because I think that there's always concern, because how long does this last? But much different question for you, Juan, is do you think you're insulated because you're on these fringe areas?
Well, Morin is downtown and not in a C+ location downtown, and Bellevue Tappenberger is in an office park in DTC. So I would say that those are definitely not insulated.
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, that's what I'm interested. Yeah.
Well, the three things that Frank Bonanno said in that last piece, and I want to just as this is the last one for me, Juan. The three things he said: how am I going to get through? How am I going to survive? And what does the other side look like? Is that where your thought process is as we move into Q4 and then the beginning? Can you even look at next year right now, Juan? What are the 1, 2, 3s for you right now, Juan?
Exactly that. He's 100% correct. I feel like we've solved one, so right now we're looking at what the winter looks like. And, we really need to put a little bit more pressure on our elected officials here to tell us what the hell we're able to do. They haven't said anything about a tent program. They haven't, if you want to enclose your patio, are they going to make you put bathrooms in because that's what code says? The city of Denver, they're trying. They haven't been super easy to work with, and that really comes from the top. So I think we need some leadership from Mayor Hancock, and I think he needs to really put his foot down and say, hey, listen, we need a drop dead date as to when we're going to give these people these answers, and same thing with Jared, with Governor Polis. those guys got to get on the same page and work together and figure out what they're going to offer or what they're going to allow for. We've had a very difficult time with all this last minute stuff, and I'm sure Mark and Chris and probably had some complaints about how long it took to make that announcement to move from 10 to 11, like a lot of other restaurateurs. I mean, that stuff should never happen. That's and those guys know better. They've been in this business. They've been in politics for long enough and are in business for long enough that this last minute stuff, puts unnecessary pressure and unnecessary, stress on an industry that's already stressed. And as much as I admire Governor Polis and think that he's doing a good job in many ways, that's one area that he needs to be better at. And same thing with, Mayor Hancock, the city. I still don't even have my patio approved for Mr. Rosso, and I'm 11 weeks into this thing. That's inexcusable in my opinion.
Run as an independent, Juan, but I'll tell you, give my vote. Juan Padro for president. Would you want the job? Would you take that job, Juan?
The president job?
Yeah.
Yep.
You would?
If my country wanted me to be president, I would take it. Yes.
I think you'd be a great president, my man. I'd wonder.
I mean, if you think the comedy every day with Trump is a thing, wait till you see if I was in office.
Would you have a governor? I know you like to speak your mind. Would you hold back a little bit, or would you be full on Juan Padro?
Yeah, I'm not too good at holding back.
Yeah. Tell us a secret, man. We had an interview with a dude what was his name from the BMC Investments? Was it BMC Investments?
Yes, it was
in Cherry
Matt
Creek.
Joblin.
Yeah, tell us the secret, man. He might let something slip. Tell us the secret, Juan.
I know where he's going on this one.
You'd have to ask Matt. He's the big man on campus. That guy's. I don't know if was he in studio or was it a Zoom call?
He was in the palatial office in Cherry Creek with the backdrop there. But what an accomplished guy!
Oh, is that right?
He's
he's a terrific human being. He's somebody that I admire greatly, and we've become friends over the years. We're both from Massachusetts, and so we have that connection. What he's done in Cherry Creek, I think, is unprecedented. There's not, the city of Denver is lucky to have a guy like that. A lot of the development in Cherry Creek is beautiful and expensive, but he also has a really, really, really good feel for what success looks like, and it's not all necessarily tied to just profitability. It's tied to soul and community and lifting people up and being inclusive, and those are my conversations with Matt, and he's been very open to those, and to have somebody in his position and his stature and sit down and take the time to listen and want to be part of that process, I think is I think is an incredible thing. And like I said, I mean, the city of Denver is a much better place because Matt Joplin lives here.
I agree. I mean, from a native Cherry Creekian that I am, kudos to him and just the philanthropic work that he does. That instituting kind of it's Cherry Creek's own stimulus package through him.
Yeah.
Wow. Right? I mean,
he cares about the business, but I think
other
it's
leaders
interesting
need to do that.
Well, when you got into this, don't you think the restaurant industry's changed a lot? Because guys like him and guys, like we were just talking with Robert, and he's got the Thompson Growth Group. You've got big money coming into the restaurant and entertainment that wasn't necessarily a big thing, was it, when you got into this industry, right?
No, look, the Food Network and things like that, kind of changed things. And, then restaurants kind of became like independent films and it's kind of the cool thing to throw some money at just to say you were part of it. And I think that's, somewhat still the case with, some of the higher end, restaurants. You don't invest in a fine dine restaurant because you want to make a huge return. That's for sure.
Well, it's interesting, Juan, because his properties, the loss leader is a restaurant in him, right? If you look at Matsuhisa and Still Creek development, you look at what he did over there with Departure and that development as well. He's coupled in the restaurant concepts into his buildings, right? So that needs to be brought in and addressed and nurtured and loved.
Yeah, and when you talk about loss leaders and things like that, I mean, I think you need to take a little bit more of a holistic view on that and understand the amenity and the value that a restaurant brings to the community. And it not only feeds a community, but it's a gathering place, and it's something that really when you live somewhere, people demand certain quality, and Matt sees that, and I think that. For a long time, he felt like he needed to go out of state and bring, concepts like Quality Italian and Bill Bouquet and Matsuhisa in. And I think he's got a comfort level with what's going on in Denver right now. And I think that he's looking to leverage the incredible resources that Denver can provide and really lift up the restaurant community here.
I like the reset on the loss leader comment of the holistic approach. I couldn't agree with you more. I'm not going to say you're not going to do something in Cherry Creek, Juan, but I'm not going to say you're not going to do something in Cherry Creek. And I'm just going to say I hope you do something in Cherry Creek, Juan. There you go.
Time will tell.
I have a serious question.
Matt's got to pay for it.
Juan, this is Jay here. I have a serious question for you. I know you guys were talking about some other stuff just now, but what do you think about Tom Brady playing in Florida?
Well, I mean, I'm 46, and the warm weather does me justice. So I don't, he's old and he's been hit a lot. So I think he needs to go down and play in some warm weather. And he's got TB12, his nutritional supplement brand, and I think he wants to prove that those supplements work. And what better way to do that than go work under Bruce Arians, who's going to let you throw the ball 40 times a game to guys like Mike Evans and Godwin and Gronk and all these running backs. And he's got every weapon under the sun down there. So I suspect he's going to put up some big numbers. And I suspect a lot of people are going to be buying his supplements that are in their 40s to make them feel like Tom.
Wow, great. Hey,
I hadn't thought about that.
Who's going to have a better record this year, the Patriots or the Bucs?
I would say they're going to be about the same. I think the Patriots had a fair amount of people that opted out due to COVID and some pre-existing conditions and things like that. Their right tackle and their star linebacker Dante Hightower, Patrick Chung, they're all-world safety there. But they're deep in the secondary, so I'm not overly concerned about that one. But the linebacker situation is a little bit scary. It's going to be a lot of young guys, and it's cool to see them have an opportunity. If Cam Newton is healthy, they can win 12 games, I think. But they have a really brutal schedule. So my expectation is 11 for the Patriots. And then when I look at what's going on in Tampa, I think it's going to be, Tom typically settles into his seasons and stuff like that. So I would expect a 2-2 start, and I think those guys will probably end up around 11-5 as well. So if I have to answer the question, I've told people for 20 years, you're an idiot to bet against Tom Brady. So I'm not going to be betting against Tom Brady.
He's made a lot of money for people, that's for sure. Speaking of just betting, what do you think of legalized gambling or legalized sports betting in Colorado? You like it?
It goes on, right? I mean, it's like legalizing cannabis because nobody smokes weed, right? So it's, it's one of those things that, when you allow an NFL team to make Vegas home, that's a pretty loud statement that gambling is part of the future. And the only way that something like as controversial as gambling becomes part of the future in a sports league is because it makes more money than you can say no to. So if it's bringing in tax revenue and that tax revenue is used properly to help our schools and help our homeless situation and lower the tax burden on some of the citizens, then I'm all for it.
You're in Philly right now?
I'm in Massachusetts. I drove from Philly to Massachusetts in 3.5 hours today.
And if you're not going 90 bumper to bumper, they'll run you off the damn road. Are you?
Well, there was no bumper to bumper. You know, it was open roads.
Was it really?
Was that a good time?
Yeah, I was like driving through Iowa.
Are you going to Boston? Where are you right now?
I'm at the house I grew up in, built in 1842. You can kind of see this old colonial guy here, and you got a little bit of check this out, the old fireplaces, and all that kind of stuff. And my mother has lived here for 47, 48 years, and she just the house just went under contract. So we're trying to figure out what the next move for her is, and so we're gonna go drive and take a look at some apartments for her. And she's 83 years old, so but she's got a fair amount of life left in her, so she wants to do some traveling and not be tied down. So we're gonna put her in a position to do that.
That's so cool.
Hey, Juan, are you going to be on the East Coast for a couple weeks?
No, I'll be back probably Thursday.
I was going to invite you to, if you wanted to come down into sunny Florida.
He wouldn't go. Juan, it's a pleasure catching up, man. I love that you're back in your house there. My mother still lives in the house I grew up in. 48 years she's had the house. And you go back and look at it, I'm sure a lot of memories. It's a new chapter to move on from that. I'm sure it's not the easiest thing in the world. Good luck to you and your family. Absolutely. Juan Padro, we love you, man. Safe travels and welcome, but we'll see you soon.
You got it. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. Okay, thanks, Juan Padro. What a show.